Hello, welcome to 50/50 Day. This is Tiffany Shlain, live from San Francisco. We have over 11,000 events happening in all 50 states and 65 countries. And I am so happy to have two women who have nurtured my career and supported so many women and brought so much diversity and gender equity to the film and social justice world. So I'm going to introduce Geralyn Dreyfous and Diana Barrett. Woohoo! They're in the house. I'm going to give your official bios because you're both so impressive. And so I'm going to start with Diana. Diana Barrett is the founder of the Fledgling Fund, which uses storytelling to drive global change. Previously, she taught at the Harvard Business School and Harvard School of Public Health and was a member of the Social Enterprise Group teaching business leadership in the social sector and executive programs. Beautiful, Diana. I'm so happy to have you here. And Geralyn Dreyfous is co-founder of Impact Partners Film Fund, which has been providing financing for over 70 films. Her independent executive producing and producing credits include Academy Award-winning Born Into Brothels, and she was also executive producer on my film. And Diana Barrett was also involved in my film, Connected. I love them both dearly. Geralyn's also the founder and board chair of the Utah Film Center. And it is such a pleasure to have you both here. I'm so happy. Okay, we have a short amount of time. Here's one of my big questions. You two have both done so much work in helping in this space, more diversity and equity. Where do you think things are right now? Because certainly from when you started from when I first met you to where you are today, what do you feel like the landscape is right now? And I'm going to go to Diana first here.
I think the landscape has lots of fluff and rainbows and pretty colors, but not a lot of substantive change at the core. I mean, I see, just without being political, just what's happening in our country. I think the major reason for this is there's not a reflective democracy. We don't have enough women in positions of power. When you look at Congress or the House of Representatives, and it's 19% in the House and about the same in the Senate. We don't, and that great scene last week in the White House around the healthcare bill of every single person was a man except one woman kind of lurking in the shadows in the back. You know? So I see this as just a major issue until we have a reflective way of dealing with the fact that it's 50% of the population. We're not going to change except for rainbows and puppy dogs.
Okay, so you're so optimistic. No, I mean, listen. I hear you. It has been a challenging time, but I do feel like there's been an awakened energy to double down on our efforts. I'm curious, Geralyn, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's important that we try everything. And I think that what we're seeing with storytelling, I mean, Diana and I were just at this Catalyst meeting with women filmmakers last week, and there was a difference in the tone, tenor, and pitch and storylines of being in a room full of women that were generating content. It felt more authentic. It felt less, it felt funny and vulnerable. And, you know, there's something about giving people voice to stories that come from authentically from their lives that's important in representation. And I think that, you know, Gina Davis's whole thing is until we are at 50% on the screen, we'll never imagine it anyplace else. It seems like such a simple form of window dressing, but something that we can actually change, at least the physical numbers, so that it will look strange if you're someplace else and there's only 2 women there.
I know. But it does feel like, I mean, just in the last 4 years, I mean, if I can put a block, the awareness and, I mean, everyone's talking about it. There is a conscience, there's active motion towards it. I mean, we were just talking to Ava DuVernay and Jane Rosenthal, where they also said structurally they're not feeling it. They're feeling a lot of awareness. They're working with a lot of women and support, but that's structurally they're still not.
You know, I think a key thing here, and you've done it because you've gotten some men talking today too, is to get men involved. Because I mean, so much of it, it's not just about women for women. It's about people and families getting involved. And that's gradually, I do see a very slight, but then when you hear about, you know, football players or college campuses and the assumptions that somehow boys will be boys and all of that. So I feel like at some level you have a lot of flurry of activity, and that's great. And you've played a major role in that through all of your work. But then we have to take that flurry of activity and translate it into some kind of executable strategy.
Yeah, and that's one of our goals with this day. Well, there was two big goals. Is that there's so many important conversations with equity that happen in buckets, whether it's pay equity or representation, all these different conversations, and how do we bring it all together into one conversation? That was one goal. And then the second one is we want to bring men, however you identify, into this conversation. A lot of tech companies here in the Bay Area, a lot of them are having 50-50 day events. And it usually was like the women's groups at the tech companies that are like, we want to bring this to our company. We said, that's great, but you have to make it a campus-wide screening. You won't do anything if you have a screening full of women. And we had great evolved men today. Actually, Michael Kimmel said this great thing today. He said that men that have daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, they love the women. They want to support their women, but we need to bring that private love and support to the public space, which I thought was a really powerful thing. How do you transition that? Because it's there. It's just like, how do you bring it where the change needs to happen at companies, at schools, at education, and in the media space?
Well, I think you have to break down the barriers between a public space and a private space, because I think, especially if you look at European countries, there's always this assumption that, oh, I love my women, my wife, my mother, they're wonderful, etc. But women don't belong in the corporate boardroom. So I think you have to kind of make men understand, or help men to understand, that there is something that has to be breached, that it's all one. And that's, I have a daughter who for years has just said that she's never felt any kind of discrimination at all. And now that she's in the venture capital world, she really is challenged.
Yeah, we had Ellen Powell on earlier, and she has a lot of thoughts about this space. Yeah.
So I think the more, what you've done today is amazing, because you've taken what could have just been a film, and you've taken it out of the private space, out of the public space, into Times Square. So now it's like you've given people a shovel. That may not be the best metaphor, but you've given people a vehicle. And now we have to take that vehicle and really run with it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of, you both know this, that even back from Connected or earlier, I always make these discussion kits, and my team and I worked really hard on these really robust discussion kits for this day with a poster that what a lot of people do with our global days, like with Character Day, they keep the poster up all year round. Shows how everything's connected and all the different parts of the issue: funding, law, health, identity, culture, media, all interconnected. And we really believe that having that up all year and real tactical research and exercises to do brings forward that change, because we need to bring the change to where it needs to happen.
Exactly.
Well, you two are both, do you want to close? I know Diana has to run, but do you want to say one project that you're working on to further gender equity and getting to 50-50? Because you're both working on great things all the time.
Well, I'll talk about one project that last week that Geralyn was there too. It's a project talking about restorative justice around women that become prostitutes and are sex trafficked. And I think the more we hear about stories like that, and the more we can support stories like that, and the more we can say, get away from the, oh, isn't this awful, but really get into what can we do to change courtrooms and ways of looking at this. So I'm excited by solutions. And what you're doing today is the beginning of a solution.
Oh, thank you. And I know you have to run. I want to hear from Geralyn and do a quick close, and then I know you have to dash. So Geralyn, you want to talk about a project that is exciting you in this area?
Absolutely. I've been working on a film about the first female director who was erased by history, Alice Guy Blanchet.
Yes.
And it turned into kind of a Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole meets Indiana Jones excavation of finding lost films that she made. She made films about birth control, and she made films about feminism, and she had African-American actors, and she did synchronized sound and color, and her story and her contributions have been erased from history, and we're just going to try to pixelate them back one little dot at a time.
Oh, I love everything I learned about her.
Oh, goodbye, all. Goodbye.
Oh, hey, I want to thank you both, because you have supported my career from early on. I am grateful. Thank you for believing in me. I'm so grateful to both of you.
We will keep.
We love you. We're inspired by you.
Love you.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.